Caitlin Clark's name doesn't come up in the union's press releases, but her shadow looms large over every decision. Alongside Angel Reese and Paige Buchers, Clark represents the league's new commercial engine. Rookie stars who drive viewership, merchandise, and media attention. Crucially, they're unaffected by the current labor standoff, and the WNBA knows it. This new wave of talent gives the league unprecedented leverage, even if veteran players walk.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The league doesn't collapse. Fans will still tune in. Sponsors will still write checks. And the younger faces of the game will keep the spotlight burning. It's a brutal reality for the union. Their strike threats once carried weight. Now, they risk becoming irrelevant. By anchoring their demands to broad institutional reforms rather than immediate player welfare, veteran leaders may have miscalculated their influence. The league, meanwhile, has played its cards with precision, using qualifying offers not just as a negotiation tool, but as a wedge to isolate players from their leadership. With real money in front of them and replacement stars ready to shine, the union's unity is cracking under the pressure. The audio is damning. The timing is disastrous. And the fallout? Just beginning. BREANNA Stewart, the face of the WNBA, the veteran, the champion, is allegedly heard calling Caitlin Clark a fraud. And if that sounds personal, it is. But it's also way bigger than just one insult. This moment is the latest crack in a union that's splintering under pressure, financial, generational, and political. Because while Stewart is busy urging players not to sign contracts, the WNBA just put the biggest pay raise in league history on the table. Minimum salaries going from $250,000 to $1.2 million under a new CBA. That's not a symbolic gesture. That's not an empty promise. That's real money. On paper. In front of players. Right now. And yet, somehow, the union is resisting. Instead of locking in those raises, BREANNA and other union leaders want to expand the negotiation scope to include things like social reform, governance restructuring, and a new revenue-sharing model. Big ideas. Lofty goals. But here's the issue. None of those fix the immediate financial struggle for the vast majority of WNBA players who don't have Nike deals or personal trainers or ownership stakes in alternative leagues. And the league? They knew what they were doing. By sending out qualifying offers under the existing CBA in the middle of this fight, they pulled the conversation down from the clouds and slammed it onto the floor. Now, players don't have to imagine what a better deal could look like. They can see it. They can count it. And it's testing their loyalty to a union strategy that seems increasingly out of sync with reality. Stewart's call to hold the line might sound noble, but when you zoom in, it starts to look like a privilege. She's not the one relying on overseas contracts to survive the off-season. She's not making $100,000 a year and deciding whether to risk it all for a political stance that might never pay off. That disconnect? It's fueling resentment. Because here's the truth. This isn't a simple story of greedy owners versus underpaid players. This is a breakdown of alignment within the union itself, between the veterans who have financial freedom and the younger, less secure players who are already operating on razor-thin margins. To those players, the new deal isn't a bargaining chip, it's a lifeline. 5 years of income in one season. That's the difference between scraping by and finally being able to build a future. But instead of embracing that, the union is asking them to wait. For what? A better structure? A bigger slice of theoretical profits from a league that's never turned one in 27 years? That's not strategy. That's a gamble, and a reckless one. Meanwhile, the public is starting to turn. When this labor movement first began, sympathy was strong. Fans rallied behind the women who carried the league through years of underfunding and underexposure. But now that the league has offered a transformative financial deal, and the players still aren't taking it, the narrative has shifted. What started as a fight for fairness is beginning to look like stubbornness. Or worse, activism for the sake of optics. And the optics? They're rough. The union's protest tactics have crossed over into the bizarre. Inflatable rats, LED billboards, and symbolic messaging campaigns might generate headlines, but they're also making a lot of people question how serious the leadership actually is. Are these negotiations or street theater? Symbolism doesn't pay the bills. And for most players, this isn't about sending a message. It's about being able to stop working 2 jobs just to stay on the roster. But the union is pushing hard, even as its foundation wobbles. Because behind closed doors, the divide is growing. Not just financially, but generationally. The league's future isn't being carried by Stewart anymore. It's being carried by rookies like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and soon, Paige Buchers. And here's the kicker. They're largely untouched by this labor dispute. They're not leading walkouts. They're not fighting contract battles. They're playing and bringing in the eyeballs. That's the real power shift. The WNBA doesn't need a unified roster of veterans to survive anymore. It needs momentum. It needs media attention. It needs stars who fill seats. And the rookies are doing that. So if a handful of older players want to strike or hold out, the league knows it can survive. It can even thrive. Because viewers aren't tuning in for negotiations, they're tuning in for talent. And talent is currently wearing a rookie jersey. The union's threat of a stoppage? Blunted. This is what makes the league's strategy so effective. By isolating the CBA fight to veterans, they've neutralized the risk of full-scale disruption. The rookies are the engine, and the engine is running. And yet, Stewart is still pushing, still demanding unity. But unity doesn't work when only a few people can afford it. And this right here, is where everything starts to fall apart. Because the union is asking lower-tier players to hold out for goals that won't change their daily lives. Reforms that won't double their income or guarantee their spot next season. And eventually, individual self-interest wins out. The qualifying offers are doing exactly what they were designed to do. Peel players off one by one. Quietly. Without fanfare. Because what do you expect when you wave $1.2 million in front of someone who's been scraping by on $90,000? This is a psychological masterstroke. It's not just about contracts. It's about creating pressure. And the longer this standoff drags on, the more the union weakens. Every player that signs becomes a data point, a message. The league is open for business, with or without the union's blessing. And now that the leaked audio is out, now that Stewart's frustrations with Clark are public, it's even harder to maintain solidarity. Because it confirms what a lot of players have probably been whispering, this isn't just about policy. It's about control, about whose voices get to define the future of the WNBA. Stewart isn't just defending the union. She's defending her status. And when that status is threatened by a younger, more popular player like Clark, the resentment boils over. Calling her a fraud doesn't hurt Clark. It hurts Stewart. It exposes the fragility of the movement. And it makes everything that follows, every speech, every call to solidarity, feel a little more like theater and a little less like leadership. This isn't a union meltdown. It's a leadership credibility crisis. And once that trust is gone, it doesn't come back. So where does the league go from here? Unless the union pivots, unless it drops the symbolic fights and focuses on locking in real money, it risks being sidelined entirely. The next generation of players is coming in fast, and they're not waiting for permission to take their moment. Clark is proof of that. So is Reese. They're not marching. They're winning. And the league is building the future around them, while the old guard fights battles that stop being relevant the moment those offers hit inboxes. Let us know what you think. Is the union's strategy falling apart? Or are they playing a long game the rest of us just can't see? Should the players take the deal and secure the bag? Or keep pushing for reforms that might reshape the league long-term? Drop a comment. Like if you're still following the chaos. Subscribe for more breakdowns. We're not done watching this one burn. At this point, it's not even about who's right anymore. It's about who's still listening. Because when you strip away all the press releases, the symbolic protests, the big ideals plastered across digital billboards, what's left is a simple, brutal question. How long can you ask players to say no to guaranteed money before they just stop answering your calls? We are watching that question unfold in real time. BREANNA Stewart, one of the most decorated athletes in the WNBA, is supposed to be the leader here. the veteran voice guiding players through a difficult but necessary standoff. But when that leadership comes with a side of leaked audio targeting Caitlin Clark, a rookie who's rapidly becoming the face of the league, it undermines the whole movement. Because it stops being about strategy and starts looking a lot like ego. If you're a younger player, a mid-tier vet, someone making 6 figures in a league where you could be making 7, you're not just hearing a union message anymore. You're hearing politics. You're seeing the power struggle play out between those at the top of the pyramid and everyone else trying to hold it up. And the league knows it. By sending out those qualifying offers during active negotiations, the WNBA didn't just shift the pressure. They flipped the script entirely. They made this about personal opportunity versus collective sacrifice. And spoiler, collective sacrifice almost always loses when the opportunity in question is financial security. There's only so much solidarity you can preach when the other side is offering 5 times your current salary. The league didn't break the union with lawsuits or legal threats. They broke it with temptation. Quiet, strategic temptation. $1 million question: would you rather change the system or change your life? And that's the trap. Because the people leading this movement, people like Stewart, already have changed their lives. They've made it. They have endorsements, equity, media coverage, clout. They can afford to fight for the bigger picture because they're not living in survival mode anymore. But most of the WNBA isn't Stewart. Most players are still grinding, still taking off-season jobs overseas, still watching rookies like Caitlin Clark walk into the league with bigger paychecks, bigger platforms, and more leverage in year one than they've ever had. So when Stewart asks those players to hold the line, it doesn't sound like inspiration. It sounds like disconnect. That's not unity. That's imbalance. And it's happening while the league, for the first time, actually looks like it's ready to pay. The narrative of underpaid and undervalued is suddenly complicated by the fact that, well, they're offering to pay a lot. Now, is that money coming with strings? Of course. It's a long-term contract under a new CBA. It locks in league-friendly terms for years. The union's concerns about revenue, sharing, and governance aren't imaginary. But they're also not urgent to the majority of players staring down a chance at generational wealth for the first time in their careers. That's the miscalculation. The leadership tried to go wide when they should have gone direct. They tried to tie massive institutional reforms to what was, at its core, a labor negotiation. And that mix just doesn't hold when the base starts to fracture, especially not when public opinion starts to shift. Because early on, fans were backing the players. Of course they were. The idea of WNBA athletes getting paid more, finally, justly, was an easy win. But now that players are turning down million-dollar deals in favor of bigger, more abstract demands, the message starts to get blurry. And blurry messages don't rally support. They cause confusion. Confusion becomes fatigue. Fatigue becomes detachment. And detachment is the death of momentum. Now throw in leaked audio where Stewart is allegedly calling Caitlin Clark, a rookie who's done nothing but deliver wins, drive viewership, and lift the league, a fraud, and it all starts to feel like sabotage. Not from the league, from inside the union. And while the audio doesn't derail the labor movement entirely, it does expose the emotional undertone that's been quietly building beneath all this resentment. Because Clark's rise isn't just meteoric, it's disruptive. She's not playing the slow game. She's not waiting her turn. She's not earning her respect from the old guard the traditional way. She's breaking records. She's driving ticket sales. She's profitable in a league that has spent decades running on losses. And that's why she's being insulated. The league is protecting her, along with other young stars like Angel Reese and Paige Buchers, by keeping them out of this contract mess. They know where their growth is coming from. And it's not from collective bargaining. It's from individual stardom. That's the other pressure the union can't control, relevancy. Because as the league builds around this next generation of players, the old playbook is starting to feel outdated. You can't shut down a league that doesn't rely on you anymore. You can strike. But if Clark is still playing, the cameras will still roll. The fans will still watch. The sponsors will still sign. That's brutal, but it's the truth. So where does this end? Probably not with a win for anyone, honestly. If the union holds out too long, they risk alienating their own base. Players will start to sign quietly, defect privately, and the movement will dissolve before it ever reaches a resolution. If the league pushes too hard, they risk looking like the villain again, undoing the goodwill they earned by putting the money on the table in the first place. But the biggest loss? That'll land on the players stuck in the middle. The ones who were never part of the inner circle. The ones who can't afford to wait. The ones who now have to decide between loyalty and survival. This should have been a moment of collective celebration. A league finally offering real compensation. Players finally getting financial security. But instead, it's become a civil war. And the longer it drags on, the harder it will be to repair the damage. Because what's being broken here isn't just a deal, it's trust. Between players and leadership. Between leadership and the league. Between the union and the public. So what now? That's the question. And it's not rhetorical. Because decisions are being made every day. Players are either signing or not. Fans are either tuning in or logging off. The WNBA is either entering a new era or tearing itself apart before it even begins. And the union? They're either going to adapt or they're going to be left behind. And if you're thinking this has to bottom out soon, don't hold your breath. Because this isn't trending toward resolution. It's trending toward collapse. Quiet, fractured, backdoor collapse where everything looks calm on the surface but underneath. The solidarity is crumbling like week-old cake. And the league doesn't even have to lift a finger. It just has to wait. The math doesn't lie. The longer this standoff drags out, the more likely it is that players who need the money, who can't afford to gamble their prime earning years, start signing those qualifying offers. Not with a press conference. Not with a statement. Just quietly, one by one. You won't see a dramatic split. You'll see the union slowly bleed support until it's just a name. A shell. That's the genius of the league's play here. They didn't come for the union head-on. They made the players choose between idealism and independence. Between waiting for abstract reforms that might never materialize or locking in generational wealth now. And for a league where most players don't have massive endorsement deals or seven-figure brand contracts on the side, that's not a hard decision. It's survival. Meanwhile, the union keeps doubling down, digging in, demanding a broader renegotiation of the entire league infrastructure, as if it still holds the kind of leverage it had 10 years ago. Spoiler, it doesn't. Back then, the top stars were the draw. They carried the league. They were the brand. Now, the brand is Caitlin Clark. It's Angel Reese. It's players the union leadership didn't build and can't control. And when Stewart allegedly calls Clark a fraud behind closed doors, it's not just mean. It's a tell. A giant, flashing signal that this isn't just about contracts anymore. It's about power. It's about control. And it's about legacy. Because Clark's rise is a direct threat to the old guard. Not because she's trying to be, but because she doesn't need them to shine. She's already bigger than the league. She's already moving product, driving ratings, getting more coverage than most entire franchises. And she's doing it while sidestepping this entire CBA fight. No wonder there's tension. And yet, it's that tension, the generational resentment, the shifting relevance, that's becoming the union's biggest liability. Because now, the public isn't just watching a labor dispute. They're watching a turf war. It's no longer workers versus management. It's veterans versus rookies. It's principle versus pragmatism. And the people choosing pragmatism, they're winning. They're securing the bag. They're building their brand. They're avoiding the mess. And most importantly, they're playing basketball, which is all the league actually needs right now. The WNBA doesn't care who plays, as long as the viewers keep showing up. And let's be honest, the viewers are showing up for the next generation. They're not tuning in for union politics. They're tuning in for buzzer beaters, rivalries, and rookies lighting up the court. The idea that a strike would shut down the season? It's outdated. The league could keep going, even with replacement players, and still ride the media wave powered by its newest stars. Which means the union's biggest weapon, work stoppage, is basically dull. It's a wild reversal. A few years ago, leadership could have threatened to strike and the league would have scrambled. Now, the league might just roll with it. Why? Because they don't need everyone. They just need enough. And if enough includes Clark, Reese, and Buchers, the show will absolutely go on. So now the union is staring down a brutal reality. They're fighting for a vision of the league that might already be extinct. A vision where veterans lead the charge, where change is collective, where solidarity trumps short-term success. But the league? It's not operating in that world anymore. It's operating in a world of viral highlights, merch sales, and media deals. And it's building that world around players who aren't caught up in this fight. So what happens next? If Stewart and the union leadership can't pivot, and fast, they risk isolating themselves entirely. They'll be remembered as the group that turned down the most transformative pay offer in league history and lost control of the locker room in the process. And the players who followed them? They'll be left holding the line for a cause that stopped including them the moment the qualifying offers hit. That's the heartbreak in all this. It didn't have to go this way. There was a moment, brief but real, when the union could have claimed victory, taken a raise, declared a win for labor, and kept pushing for reforms from a position of strength, a position of momentum. Instead, they gambled on getting everything, and now they might walk away with nothing, because the league doesn't need to compromise. Now when the fans are buying tickets, the sponsors are signing checks, and the rookies are dominating headlines. Stewart might still have a mic, but Clark has the camera, and in this era of sports, the camera wins. So let's wrap this all the way up. The WNBA offered a six-fold raise. The union said no, not like this. They wanted more than money. They wanted governance, revenue sharing, structural change. But in doing so, they stretched too far. And now the movement is tearing from the inside. Mid-level players are eyeing the money and questioning why they should wait. Younger players are keeping their distance. Public support is fading. And Stewart's leaked rant has made it clear. This fight isn't just ideological. It's personal. It's emotional. It's messy. The union's trying to build a legacy. But the league? The league is building a business. And unless something changes fast, only one of those is going to survive. Let us know what you think. Should players take the historic deal or keep holding out? Is this a battle for justice or just a leadership crisis with better branding? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Like if you're watching this unfold in real time, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens when it finally breaks. Because the real collapse? It hasn't hit yet, but it's coming.